With episode 14 of Summertime Rendering, I think we're finally at that point of pushing Shinpei to his worst. I think after this whole build-up and this big power friendship, everybody's gathered together, and we're having this whole kind of, we'll together band together to fight the evil thing, and then done. I knew it was coming. Like, everybody knew it. Well, it was like either that or somebody else got shot, but yeah, I was figuring, yeah. We're at the point now where we're going to push Shinpei to his lowest possible low, and that's what Heine wants to do, and I'm very curious how much they're going to push it. This is obviously one of those moments where I'm kind of fearing for the show. I really don't want to have the dead this way, over and over and over and over again, but I guess it's the best way to push it again to that limit point. But I don't know if they want to do that yet. I mean, we're still 14 of 25 episodes, so I don't know that they want to get that far quite yet, but still, great episode, and I think I was a little bit let down, honestly, with the whole Heine and Hizuru part, because I was really expecting there to be more in that backstory than what they did. But at the same time, was happy to see that my theory on how Ryunosuke and Hizuru worked was sort of correct. But this is my thoughts on the episode, so let's dive right into it. Yeah, opening up the episode, we have the scene with Hizuru and Heine, and they are in that second floor, which we kind of mentioned earlier. Ushio was mentioning that somebody was living up there. Well, it was Heine. She was actually living up there, and Hizuru would bring her snacks and just hang out with her. This is where we get a mention from Heine that she's not supposed to see anybody. Yes, she wanted Hizuru to get her friends and to meet her friends, but she's not really supposed to. And the reason why she says this is because Shide wouldn't want it to happen. He would forbid it. And this is the big question mark. Who's Shide? Didn't take them long to really dive into, yes, this sounds like the four-armed shadow. The four-armed shadow is Shide. Now, the interesting thing there is that she mentions that Shide is, well, Hizuru asks who Shide is, and she says, he's pretty much he's greed incarnate. Now, here's my big question mark. I don't want to go down this path, but it's very easy to start going down this path, because Japan sometimes really loves the 7 deadly sins aspect. So is she just saying greed incarnate, like the idea that he's just really wanty, like he wants things and he never says no to things, and he's very overbearing or whatever? But if you think about it, it's kind of something that we kind of presented with Heine this episode, is the moment that she tasted blood, she started getting very, very hungry. And the entire episode is that, her getting snacks from Hizuru and just chomping them down and being excited about food from Hizuru. And then, yes, eventually getting to the point where she wants blood, and she goes after Ryunosuke. So, everybody knows where I'm going with this. Greed, Shide, Heine, or Hiroko, Gluttony. Now, I don't know if it's going to go that route, if we're going to have one of each, but it is technically opening the door to that. We've already gotten Gluttony and Greed, so we'll see. We'll see if it goes down that path, but for now, we'll stick with just the fact that he's really wanting. That's Shide. It was interesting. I love the later on scene seeing Shide and Shiori all at the dinner table, and the parents are there. Of course, they're all shadows. We know the parents are already shadows at this point, but they're just kind of eating and talking about what they're going to do next. But that was just it was a bit interesting. But no, finishing Hizuru's story, and this is, like I said, where it kind of was a little bit anticlimactic. Starts jumping forward. We see again, she gets a cut on her hand. That's when Heine or Hiroko licks it, and then again, that's where I think she started getting the taste for blood, because in not very after, like, the cut forward, and she is talking about eating. Nothing is giving her what she wants. Hizuru's even noting, maybe snacks isn't enough for you. She really wants to eat. She starts thinking about, again, this is where I get to that whole gluttony thing. Starts thinking about Heine's parents, I think, is what she's really kind of reflecting on. Parents came back from the fishing boat. They didn't have food. We all starved. My entire family died. That's where it's kind of hitting on, is the idea that she's so obsessed with eating because her entire family died of starvation. This is, I guess, the point in which Hizuru herself would have learned about the shadow, because Heine told her, touch my shadow too. She's comforting her, but she's not comforting her actual existence, which is the shadow. It's not the body of Heine. But yeah, this is when everything goes downhill, and like I said, this is probably the part where I was a little bit let down. Like, I was expecting this to be something a little bit more, but no, it's like, here's Ryunosuke, and he's looking for his sister, and he's bringing snacks because it's apparently her birthday, and he's walking through the forest, and he ends up running into Heine, who's eating something, and then apparently she turns on him as well. We also get Hizuru runs into Nezu. Apparently Nezu was on the village, or was on the island just hunting snakes. Like, I thought that he was doing a cover, but no, this is the point in which Nezu also first learns about the shadows, because he learns the same time as Hizuru does. But yeah, Hizuru finds Heine. She's killed Ryunosuke and is feeding off him. Now here's the part where we get an answer for what Hizuru and Ryunosuke as a singular thing is. And this is because when Hizuru first seen Heine doing this, she freaked out. It seems like Heine, what I'm assuming here, and it didn't really completely explain it, is that the side of Heine, which is the flesh, was upset because she didn't want to do this. Hiruko, who is the shadow that was controlling her, wanted to consume the body. And so you have this conflict between the two of them. And despite the fact that she took an image of Ryunosuke and was going to absorb that data, because there was this conflict between the flesh and the shadow, there was that conflict, and it apparently, according to Ushido, it shot the image of Ryunosuke off of her onto Hizuru. And so this is the point where she took that data into herself, and that's why she has all the memories and the personality of Ryunosuke, is because it was thrown upon her. And additionally, and this is the odd part, and again, this could be because the two sides were conflicting at this point, that's the point in which her right eye just shot out of the socket. Like, she was so angry and conflicted that just shot out of her eye. It shot her eye out. And apparently scurried away. I hope they'll explain the eye thing later on. My assumption is that, this is kind of my assumption that I've had for a little bit, is the idea that the all-seeing eyes, the eye that Shinpei eventually gets, this is something that's outside of the norm. And I believe that it's something that Hiruko stole. It's not actually Hiruko's. It's not actually Heine's eye. They took it and they were using it. And so it's gonna be something that doesn't want to be a part of Hiruko, because it wasn't originally from Hiruko. It could either be that, or there's some data inside of her at that point that is somehow connected with maybe Ushio's family or something. Again, we're still pulling the idea that Ushio is something special. Her bloodline's probably something special. But yeah, having Ryunosuke inside of her now, he grabs Nezu and runs off, and they end up having to fight a shadow. And this is the point in which we do technically get Nezu's first capture of his image. And this would be the point in which he would have become immune, because he had a snapshot taken of him, and then that snapshot was defeated. It was funny that they kind of hit on this particular situation later on, because as this conversation between Shinpei and Hizuru, kind of noting the fact that Shinpei knows her history now, kind of points out the fact that, oh, you don't want your brother to fight for you. You don't want your brother to take over. That's great. You care about your brother. And she's like, no, every time it's like that tsundere thing. Like, she doesn't want to admit that she doesn't want to rely on her brother. But again, I also equate to something like, I don't know if she would want to, because he's a byproduct of the shadows. And that was a conflict that I've always seen in Hizuru. But she's mentioned the idea that, no, last time I did that, I came out with a broken ankle and a dislocated arm. He's too powerful. If he went all out, he would destroy my body. But that's technically right there, again, mentioning the idea of why she's so powerful is not only that she got the data of Ryunosuke, but she also got, that data came with the powers of the shadows. It was a production of a shadow at that point. And so she sort of got that inside of her. So that's why when Ryunosuke takes over, she's got like superhuman strength. She does have the capability of seeing the future. Again, that whole hive mind connection mindset. She's able to see this stuff. But yeah, that was pretty much all the really interesting stuff in this episode. From this point on, we do the reset again. Everybody gets gathered together. I was mentioning my last video impressions that I didn't like the fact that Ushio was giving people all the information. Well, I guess at this point we can confirm that not only is Heine traveling with him to each loop, but she's also retaining those memories as well. So my theory on the idea of too much information is deadly is useless at this point, because everybody knows now, and she has all that information. So I still believe there's a threat to gathering too many people, and I think that's something that Shinpei is going to be forced to have to realize. Like, gathering a whole big army, this is the point where he gathers everybody together, fill everybody in on what's going on. Everybody gives their speech of why they want to, work with Shinpei to take down the shadows. Go through every single person, Tetsu, Tokiko, so everybody has to give their speech, and then yes, Shinpei just gets shot and it just resets. But before that, we did get a cute scene with Mio and Ushio. The idea that Mio sees those memories of calling Ushio a monster and then realizing that Ushio has always been fighting for her and that she wants to fight for once. And that's always been my thing of like, Mio always seems like a character that shows up at the last minute to die. But now we had this one moment where she was at the earlier parts of it, but then Shinpei just dies anyways. But I think what this is going to really push on Shinpei, there's two different directions I can see this going, honestly. One direction I see it going is Shinpei is going to have to realize he needs to go solo. Like, he cannot build an army to fight against these shadows. He's got to be tactical and very quiet about how he takes down the shadows. And gathering a bunch of people together in a gymnasium is not going to work, and he's going to get taken out. The other direction I see it going to is that he's going to have to find Ushio again. And this is the struggle that he's going to be facing going forward. Something that didn't dawn on me until after I finished the episode and I turned it off and everything. I was like, oh wait, Ushio's not there with him. Like, he is taken a huge step back. He was kind of beneficial in the idea that they were sticking together through each of the resets, but he didn't know this was going to happen this time. Ushio did not know this was going to happen this time, and she was a little bit separated from him. So I'm assuming she's not going to be at his side. I don't know if she's going to retain her memories. My hope is so, because unless it seems like they shot him from the right and Ushio was on his left, and I think the whole idea is that they want to make sure that he dies before Ushio. So I think she will retain her memories, but they're going to be separated, and hopefully they can find each other quickly. But if she finds him, if she does still have his memories, my second thought process on how this needs to go going forward is Ushio is going to have to figure out how to make clones. Again, they've kind of insinuated the idea that Heine is the only one that can produce multiple shadows from herself, but never becoming the shadow. So she's able to take a snapshot at somebody, make a clone, and they walk off. Whereas most of the other shadows, when they take a snapshot of somebody, they have to turn into it. So, which can go with that direction as well. Ushio has to figure out how to make clones of Shinpei, because they need to make multiple targets for Heine to go after. Because right now, Heine's on the hunt. Like she said, I'm going to kill him over and over and over and over again until he gets to that point where he just dies for real. And so I think, again, they're going to have to make clones just to give something for her to target, or Ushio becomes Shinpei. Like, she takes a snapshot of him and becomes Shinpei. That's my other theory. But that's the whole struggle there, the idea that she's going to lose herself. She said that when she was taking a snapshot of Shide. I need to be only the arm because I needed to focus on not losing myself. Maybe just take the head of Shinpei and then just kind of cover up everything else and get some broad shoulders going on. I don't know. My third theory, and this is the crazy one, but stick with me here. Why does Heine always know where he's at? The mark on his arm. Kind of. I'm just waiting for the moment he just goes, chop. I don't know if that would work, but I'm just waiting for that moment of the chop. Or, again, technically Ushio was forcing herself into Heine to erase her. It's curious why they haven't thought of the idea of why not see if Ushio can erase that mark. Can she not see it? Does she not know it's there? I don't know. I think he's shown it to people, so I think they know that it's there. The mark's there. But technically, everybody doesn't really acknowledge it. Like, what's wrong with your arm? To finish things off, I have a couple notes to kind of keep in mind. They did note specifically that Mio was kind of an oddity, the Shadow Mio, and the idea that yes, she goes to the residence, but they're acknowledging the idea that she never cares to go after Mio. Why doesn't the Shadow Mio ever go after to kill her original? It seems odd. I mean, we only see it in like maybe the first reset she went after Mio. But it always seems like she's always going after something else. She's always seeking out something else, which obviously implies that she's not like a normal shadow that just goes after her origin. She's actually got a purpose that Heine is giving her to go after, which we kind of knew from previously that she's going after all of their family because she's trying to figure out where the Shadow Ushio is. I'm hoping that it'll be something more interesting in the idea that Mio is conflicted. The Shadow Mio itself is conflicted by the existence of Shinpei, because obviously the original Mio loves Shinpei. And my last note that I have is kind of noting the idea that when Hizuru first left the island following this big tragedy, she's seen Heine or Hiroko on the shoreline basically saying, because we're friends, I'm going to let you leave this time. But when you come back, I'm going to kill you. And it's like, is that Hiroko talking? Like, I allowed you to know this knowledge, and because Heine loved you so much, I'm going to let you live for now. But when you come back, I'm going to take over. Heine is not going to have a word in this, and I'm going to take you down. It just seemed like a really weird a relationship that Hizuru has with Heine slash Hiroko. Like, it almost felt like they were very close to each other. And again, this kind of leads to probably my only issue that I have with this episode is really kind of building a lot into that relationship, but then it almost feeling like it's just thrown away. Like, Heine Hiroko has no care for Hizuru, despite the fact that they seem like they made a bond there. Is that, again, because Hiroko finally took over the entirety of Heine, and now Heine, who was making a bond with Hizuru, no longer exists? I'll be very curious maybe if that later on something like that will come up again, that the two of them will be faced off against each other, and Hizuru will finally call out that, I know who you are, Heine. Despite the fact that you've killed all these people that I love so much, we had something. Anyways, that's my thoughts on episode 14. We also didn't really get an explanation of where the eye went. Like, how does the eye get from this point running and scurrying away to, I guess, the hands of Hishikata? Or how does that get to Ushio? Because obviously Ushio gets it eventually and gives it to Shinpei. But again, that was all in his head. That transition from there to Shinpei is going to be a very interesting question. And again, I was kind of assuming we were going to get that answer at that point. But again, that might be something we'll transition to Hishikata and learn about that further back. At some point, Shinpei dying again and going further back to the point in which Hishikata first, I guess, made this agreement with Hiroko. And then, yes, maybe at some point skip forward and see that Hishikata found the eye and maybe, again, gave it to Ushio. I'm still thinking that Ushio, a creation of Hishikata. Like, Hishikata knew that they turned Ushio into a shadow of some sort, and then he modified her in some way. But we'll see. That's my thoughts on episode 14. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure to hit that like button down below. Comment. Let me know what you thought of the episode. Subscribe to the channel if you've not already. I do news, reviews, first impressions. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, we have a Patreon link, a tips link, and a super thanks button down below. Definitely appreciate everybody that does, and y'all take care.